suspects, right? So, again, I'll stop here. Who do you think did it? From the information that I'm presenting you thus far, what do you guys think?
The dad.
The dad.
You think the dad did it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's either the dad or a sibling.
Let me tell you something. The dad was the first one to be cleared. He was the absolute first one to be cleared because they did a handwriting analysis on the ransom note, right? It didn't match whatsoever. The other people in question in the family were the mother and the father. So there are some theories that say that the young brother accidentally killed the sister and that the family was trying to cover it up to so that he could have a future, essentially, right? But all members of the family, right, including the mother, the father, and the brother, were exonerated because the DNA evidence did not match their DNA, right? Which we'll get into afterward. Let me get into some other suspects. There was a man called Bill McReynolds, right? He was someone, this is around Christmas time, mind you, that all of this is taking place. He was someone who went around to different, Christmas parties and he dressed up as Santa, right? Okay. He was at the house 2 days prior, dressed up as Santa at the family's Christmas party. He felt close to JonBènet because his own daughter was kidnapped 2 years prior. JonBènet had given him a glass jar full of glitter, which is like a really kid thing to do, right? Yeah. And that one little jar of glitter meant so much to him that he took the glitter to his heart operation. He took it with him inside the OR, right? Okay. Kind of strange, right? When he had told his wife, and he was recorded as saying, "When I die, mix my ashes with the glitter that JonBènet Ramsey gave me." Spooky, right? Spooky. Why is he so obsessed with this little girl that this little jar of glitter means so much to him, right?
Right.
He was quoted as saying, "Her murder was harder on me than my own operation. She made a profound change in my life." Spooky. But I will say, beyond the creepy details, nothing suggests that he's a murderer. They took DNA sample from him, and it did not match the DNA that was found on her body at the time she was discovered.
He might have killed his own daughter, though. He might have killed his own daughter.
Who's to say? Okay.
Sheesh.
Okay, so there's another suspect, right? His name is Gary Oliva. He lived a few blocks away from the Ramseys at the time of the murder. In 2000, he was arrested on unrelated drug charges, but when they searched him, he had a backpack on him, right? Inside the backpack, he was carrying a picture of JonBènet, right?
With the little girl?
Of the little girl, the murdered little girl. This is 4 years after.
Do the families know each other?
He lived in the neighborhood.
But
the families don't necessarily know each other. He was much older at the time.
We found the guy.
We got him.
Ladies
and gentlemen, we got him.
Listen, guys. Listen, okay? So they found a picture of her in his backpack. When they asked him, "Why do you have this? This is so weird," he was quoted as saying, "JonBènet's murder touched me very deeply. I felt she was an exceptional girl whose death was an exceptional loss." Not good enough for me personally, but whatever.
How old is she when she died?
She was 6 years old.
6.
Mm-hmm. In 2000, she would have been 10 years old.
Yeah. This girl has a lot of effect on random people, man.
Yeah, I know.
Random white guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Chill out, Paloma. Chill out.
I'm just saying.
Chill out. I'm just saying. Okay. So he was arrested on the unrelated drug charges. That's when they found the picture, but they let him go because they couldn't necessarily hold him, right?
Right.
In 2016, he was arrested on charges of child pornography. So the guy was a creep. He was a creep.
We found him.
We got it. Ladies and gentlemen.
It gets deeper, okay? It gets crazier. So anyway, they took a DNA sample from this guy. DNA did not match. It wasn't him.
What is the DNA supposed to be?
I feel like it's the person we suspect least right now.
The DNA, you remember how I said earlier they found DNA evidence in her underwear as well as her pajamas, right? But that sample, when they cross-referenced it against the FBI database, it didn't match anybody, right? So they took that sample and they tried to cross-reference it with his own DNA. It didn't match. So he wasn't the person.
Who is it then?
Okay, so here's where it gets spooky. A high school friend of Oliva called Michael Vale revealed in an exclusive interview with In Touch magazine, that Oliva had called him a day after the murder and said to him, quote, "I heard a little girl. right? I hurt a little girl. So the friend asked him, where did this happen? Oliva says, in Boulder, Colorado, right? Here's the spooky part. According to records, right, there were no other girls hurt in that area that night. JonBenet was the only one. So if what Oliva is saying is true,
We found the guy.
we found the gun.
Okay.
But the gag is the DNA doesn't match, right? So you have to think to yourself, why would anybody want to say something like this? You know, take responsibility for a heinous crime, right? A lot of people say that they want the attention, blah, 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 whatever the case.
Attention for this though.
There's some sickos out there.
Proceed. So far we have the things that we have right now is the letter, the misspelled letter as well, and the pad that it was written on, and DNA sample so far.
And DNA samples so far.
And the rope, right?
And they didn't test the rope. The rope just was entered as evidence, but they never actually tested it for anything.
Okay,
right?
go ahead.
But the significant thing about the rope is that it does belong to the alleged kidnapper, the alleged criminal, because it's unfamiliar to the home. The parents didn't recognize it. The younger brother didn't recognize it. But again, that could very well be a lie. Who's to say?
I proceed.
Okay, something interesting. Okay, remember how earlier I said that at the crime scene, JonBenet Ramsey was found strangled, right?
Mm-hmm.
The specific knot that was used to strangle her is familiar to the story because this man, Gary Oliva, he had tried to strangle his own mother with a telephone cord using the same knot that was found in JonBenet. What are
You
the
talking about
odds
the
of
guy
that?
with who had the picture, right?
Yeah.
It is him.
There's
It's gotta
lots
be.
of evidence pointing to him, but the DNA doesn't match. So that's why with this case, there's so many maybe it was him, but it's still unsolved to this day. Right? Kuglu. Moving on.
But if you have much more evidence,
But there's been cases where DNA has been looked
yeah.
Yeah, but you also have to understand that this is 1996, right? So DNA was not at the time, wasn't as advanced. That technology wasn't as advanced as it is now.
I know, but they should use the other evidences to at least,
Think about it. Do you think that evidence would hold up in
court.
a
No.
court of law, right? There could potentially be reasonable doubt, and that's why this man was never charged with the murder of JonBenet. Okay. He's my prime suspect personally, but I think it's pretty insane that the DNA didn't match. Whatever. Our last suspect is a man by the name of John Mark Karr.
John with an H?
John with no H. His name is actually spelled the way that JonBenet's is, but just John.
His name is Mark Karr?
His name
Okay.
John Mark Karr. MarkKarr.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even think of that. That's so funny.
Okay.
Okay. So John Mark Karr, he was stop, come on. He was a divorced elementary school teacher, and he came into light and came into not fame necessarily, but notoriety with this case 10 years after the murder, right? So in 2006, he was pen pals with a journalist, right? There was a journalist who was trying to uncover all the details of the JonBenet case because it's been so many years and the whole world still wants to know what happened, right?
Yeah.
So he got in touch with a member of the community. His name was John Mark Karr. Come on.
I did not do anything.
They had been emailing back and forth for 4 years. This journalist had a strong inkling that this man is the one who did it, right? But he had to build a rapport with this man so that he could basically trust him
Buddy
enough,
with him.
buddy enough with him so that he could trust him to tell him what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
They're emailing back and forth for 4 years, and eventually he had confessed to the murder, right?
Oh, the guy did?
Yeah. And here's something interesting. In the emails that he was going back and forth with, he used a lot of the same misspellings as found in the ransom note. Suspicious, right?
Yo, it's him.
You said that about the last guy, Hamza. That's the thing about it, right? So
I'm inconsistent as hell right now.
he also used the nickname of JonBenet's grandmother. Her nickname was Nettie, but that's like something only known to family. How did he have such intimate details of their family life? How did he know that? To this day, no one knows. So, Karr confessed that he was in love with JonBenet, and that he hit her over the head with a flashlight. Remember when I said that the independent autopsy concluded that she was bludgeoned to death, meaning that she was hit over the head? This kind of points to that, right? So, in the email that he confessed in, he said, quote, "She of course was sleeping from the time that it took place. I took her from her bed and to the basement. Her first reaction was, 'Where am I?' And I said, 'You're in your basement.' She wasn't in that little room to be disgraced, and I would never disgrace or dishonor her. She was there temporarily, and what really hurts me is that she stayed there, and that's where her father found her, and that's just a horrible thing," right?
CD.
Squeaky. But this is just a confession.
Why would somebody attack a 6-year-old girl?
Hamza, I need you to understand there's a lot of sickos in the world. A lot of creepy people, right? And she was a young girl who was very beautiful, and she was famous in her community. Also, her father was very, very wealthy. Very wealthy. He was the president of a technology company, like I said before.
Yeah.
And when he had sold his company to Lockheed Martin, that weapons company, he made a lot of money, right? And they had boats and they had jets and homes and vacation homes and things like that. They were kind of flaunting their wealth, right? So I understand why this family could potentially be a target, but I don't understand the crime necessarily, right?
What is John Mark's Karr relationship to the family?
He was just an elementary school teacher in the community. That's it.
Oh, so he was her teacher?
He wasn't her teacher. Mind you, she was in kindergarten at the time, and he was not her teacher. But he knew of her because she was famous, right?
Did he ever say how he got in the house?
We'll get into it.
Okay.
At this time, this particular suspect, John Mark Karr, lives in Bangkok, Thailand, right? He had fled California because they had charged him with child pornography. They charged him with possession of child pornography. So he left. He's in Bangkok, Thailand, right? So with the help of the British intelligence, the Royal Thai authorities, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, they traced him to where he was. They ended up extraditing him back to the United States. And he says that when they interviewed him and they tried to coax information out of him, all he said was that he did not act alone. Remember, there were 2 sets of footprints inside the home that are unidentified. 2 people, one person can't have 2 different feet.
Yeah.
Right? So he said he didn't act alone.
Can I make a prediction?
Yes.
I'm going to predict that the guy that was caught with the letter, the guy that was misspelling the letter, the pen pal guy, was his name Carl?
John
Mark Karr.
Him and the neighbor with the picture both did it.
Gary Oliva.
Yeah.
That's a theory.
I think
that's
those
out
2
there,
did it.
Right? So here's something. He says he didn't act alone, but when they checked his DNA, guess what? The DNA did not match. Again,
I think we're using the DNA thing to an extreme point right now.
No, it's something like for a person to have such intimate knowledge of a family and to admit it, like literally say, "Hey, I did it," but to be off the hook just because the DNA didn't match is wild to me personally.
Do they know if she got raped before or after?
She wasn't raped.
Or the DNA
She
was
wasn't
put
raped.
on?
I'm gonna get to that. So right now we've had a total of 6 suspects.
Okay.
All of them exonerated because the DNA evidence didn't match, right? So the whole world, our head is spinning. Who killed JonBènet Ramsey? How did it happen? What's going on, right? So like I said, this is such a high-profile case. There was a DNA expert by the name of Dr. Henry Lee, right? He was best known for the DNA analysis on the O.J. Simpson trial, right? He did research in this particular case, and he found that the underwear that was found that JonBènet was wearing at the time may have held DNA that was transferred from the process of manufacturing. And he proved this by testing an unopened package of underwear which had DNA, meaning that essentially, conceivably, any one of those people could have done it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the DNA.
So the DNA evidence that these, that the law enforcement was crying about exonerating all these people, there's nothing. It literally means nothing. It literally shows that any one of these people could have been the killer.
That's like I was saying the whole time. We're just using too much power to DNA to proceed.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So anyway, As of today, it's been 24 years since the murder of JonBenet